let me warn you, these guitars will ruin you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Guitar Room. Today I will be sharing my opinion on why you should avoid high-end guitars. These days it seems every time you turn around there's new guitars flooding the market. You've got reissues coming back or artist signature guitars, and there are so many options it's hard to make a decision. I know many people are playing entry-level guitars and they're dreaming of someday having a high-end guitar. But to be honest, you don't need it. And when you look at high-end guitars, you'll see the prices are just insane these days. For example, Gibson Custom Shop, if you just want a basic Les Paul, not a reissue, not a signature, just a custom shop Les Paul, they come in at $5,500. Now, if you want a reissue, let's say a Murphy Lab 1959 reissue Les Paul with light aging, that's going to run you $8,200. And the Fender Custom Shop is a little bit better, but not by much. If you look at Custom Shop Strats, you're talking $4,000 to $6,000. And then there's PRS, and their private stock guitars come in at well over $10,000. Not to mention all of the boutique brands. And these are smaller companies that are putting out a lot less guitars, but they're spending a lot of time on the guitars they build. So they're coming in with astronomical prices as well. And a couple examples of boutique brands are Novo Guitars and Crook, and a lot of those are right up there with those Gibson Custom Shop prices. What makes these guitars so expensive? Well, first of all, these brands boast that their high-end guitars are made in the USA, and a lot more of their components are handmade. And some of it just simply comes down to the construction. An example of that is the binding that you see on the edges of a lot of Gibson guitars, as opposed to no binding on the cheaper guitars. And if you don't know anything about that process, just go look up a video. There's plenty of documentation of that on YouTube. Putting binding on a guitar requires a lot more time from a person, and it can't be replicated by a machine. And that obviously equates to higher prices. Another difference in construction is a bolt-on neck versus a set neck, and that's part of why you'll see Fender prices are generally lower than Gibson prices. Most Gibson guitars have binding and a set neck, where Fender guitars usually don't have binding and they have bolt-on necks, and that construction process is much simpler, which brings their price tag down. These days there are many alternatives to these high-end guitars that come with a much lower price tag but are still really good guitars. Epiphone now has a lineup that they call Inspired by Gibson Custom. These guitars take the Gibson Custom Shop and turn them into more affordable guitars. So you can even get a 59 reissue Les Paul with an Epiphone headstock on it. And those come in around $1,000 as opposed to $5,000 to $8,000 if you want one that says Gibson on it. Squier, the budget brand associated with Fender, has many, many options for under $500. PRS has their SE lineup, and there are many options when you look at Japanese brands. You have Ibanez guitars that have a lot of options under $500, and ESP for $1,000 or less. And a lot of them are very similar to those high-end guitars. You know, if you want a Les Paul, you can find an Epiphone that has 2 humbucker pickups and a 3-way toggle switch, or you can find an ESP that has those same exact features. So really, what's the point? The two guitars I showed earlier are both Les Paul style guitars, but they are at complete opposite ends of the spectrum. This one here is an Epiphone, and this is about as cheap as you can get. I think this was around $120 when I bought it a few years ago. But you've got 2 pickups, 6 strings, volume knob, tone knob. What more do you need? And on the high end, there's this Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul in a custom color, but you've got 2 pickups, 6 strings, volume knobs, tone knobs, toggle switch. So why would you spend 50 times the money for just a guitar? Now, why would I be talking you out of buying guitars that I obviously own and really enjoy having? Well, when I was starting out, I remember hearing, if you can't make the cheap guitar sound good, you won't be able to make the expensive guitar sound good. And that applies across the board. Good amps, good pedals, a good guitar. They don't mean anything if you don't know what you're doing. So if you're just starting out, that money would be better spent on lessons or resources that are going to help you get better. But let's say you're not a beginner and you just want to own a nice guitar. Let me warn you, these guitars will ruin you. You heard me right. They'll ruin you. The problem is, once you have a nice guitar in your hands, and once you know what it's like to play something that has had a lot of time put into it and a lot of attention to detail, you'll never want to go back. My wish list used to be Les Paul Studios or Les Paul Specials. But now that I've crossed that line, I hardly even look at them. My wish list is all custom shop, Murphy Lab, vintage, nothing that's affordable. Let this be a warning to you. Don't make the leap to high-end guitars until you're really ready for it. I consider myself very fortunate to have a custom shop Les Paul like this one. But the reality is, you don't need it. You can find any style of guitar with any pickup combination for way less money. And if you don't know how to play, they're all going to take up the same amount of space in your closet. If you own high-end guitars, obviously I'm poking fun a little bit, so don't take offense to anything I'm saying, and check back in a couple weeks because I'll probably make a video for why you should buy high-end guitars. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. Do me a favor and subscribe, like the video, and let me know in the comments what affordable guitar you have and you like. Mine would be this acoustic guitar behind me. It's an Alvarez, and I've had it for like 6 years, and it was like $250. And it's the only acoustic guitar I own. And that's it for today. Just having a little fun, and I will catch you guys later.